So I do think that possibly I contributed to the world going so crazy. But I'll just kind of give like just some more examples. Like in 2013, when I came out with the Quadramile stuff, again, I was a Marxist. I was confused about my grandpa's teachings because my grandpa would talk about, I thought he was a white supremacist Nazi. He seemed religious. I always saw religion as white supremacist. But then at the same time, he'd talk about transcend the ego, transcend dualistic software, be in the flow. And I'm thinking, okay, that's like race mixing. Like hippie race mixing, like the flow, transcend the ego, let's race mix. Don't care about the saving the self. Don't care about your race. That's the ego. Let's all race mix. Yeah. So I was just confused. I just thought my grandpa's was just, I couldn't understand what he was teaching. But I thought it was basically white supremacist though. But at the same time, I'm like, but it's not. Like, I'm like, the flow, that seems like race mixing. So he just confused me. But like I said though, he wanted me, right when I graduated, he didn't believe the Quadra model. And he wanted me to get a job. And I went to Kauai. And I was telling him, like, I discovered theory of everything, the Quadra model. And he's like, no, you didn't discover theory of everything. What about the 10 planets? He didn't believe it. So he's trying to get me to get a job. And again, in my mind, I'm like, okay. I remember I was watching this teaching company course. And in the course, they had this, it was based around a painting where the original painting was a black woman taking care of a white woman, but a Jewish guy made a new painting with the white woman taking care of a black woman. And again, I always loved the Jews for being like that, for wanting to subvert the white race, and that's the way I was. So I loved that painting. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. And I was like, and in my mind I was like, okay, white people want to work. My grandpa's a white guy, and he talks about working so hard, and that's because he's probably a German, and that's a Protestant work ethic. That's a Christian. It's a white supremacy thing, maintaining the status quo. And I was like, my grandpa taught, like, if you work, you transcend the ego. And I understood that, like being a part of something greater than yourself, you transcend the ego. I understood that. But at the same time, it's like, I always saw him as a white supremacist. And I'm like, if white people want to work so hard, the conservative white people, Fox News, they talk about working hard and everything. Well, then why don't they just become slaves? Because I was like, if people, what they talk about, they should be what they talk about. Like, if someone's like, working hard's important, okay, then work hard. And I was like, and you could take care of the black people and the Jews who are, making music and playing basketball, and, the Jews doing their philosophies and all that stuff. And I liked, I was kind of a Jewish supremacist. Like, I really liked all the Jewish scientists. Like, I would look at all the Jewish scientists and all the Jewish writers, and I'd be like, and I'd see how they'd have curly hair, and I'd be like, oh yeah, they're kind of more black, and they're geniuses, and this is more evidence that race mixing is good, because Jews are kind of not really white, they're kind of race mixed a little with Africans, and again, I was anti-white and wanted race mixing. But I'll kind of like give some of the ways I looked at things. So my grandpa was like, well, if you get a job, then you're part of the anti-tropic growing function and all that stuff. So I was like, I told my grandpa, like, that's when I started becoming more Marxist, and I started writing on Facebook and writing on INTP Central my Marxist ideas, and basically saying how capitalism isn't good. And I would talk to my friend Noah, who was kind of a Marxist, and we would talk about how, like, in capitalism, you care more about making money than actually helping people. And so, for instance, like the Paradox of Choice book, if you have too many choices, then you actually aren't as happy. And in capitalism, it's like they make all these different types of deodorant when they could just have one. Like in a communist system, that would be the best. And like would talk about ideas like, the fire departments, they actually make money by having fires, so they have an incentive to not stop fires or make conditions that will prevent fires, because then they'll be out of work. And I was like, that's the problem with the capitalist system, or even like the doctors and stuff. In a capitalist system, they want to make money, so they actually have incentive to get people sick. Or like the fast food places, they don't really have an incentive to make healthy food. They just have an incentive to make money. So they might have an incentive to, make more greasy food that people like to taste more. And, so I was anti-capitalist, and I was like, and so in my mind, anything destructive of the capitalist system was good. So, and that's where I kind of got in with, when I wrote my psychiatric slavery book in 2015, I tried to argue basically like, that mental illness is actually good, because I was like, people who are depressed, they're depressed because of the capitalist system. First off, because, it's alienating and so on and so forth. But also depression is actually good because, because mental illness is actually a social construction. They say depression is just the common denominator with all the mental illnesses is it says that it prevents you from functioning well in society. So someone can have according to schizophrenia, you have to have delusional beliefs, right? A delusional belief. But if you have a delusional belief but still function well in society, it's not schizophrenia. So for instance, they say a lot of people think Christianity is a delusional belief, but because there's social approbation and social approval, and there's a lot of people who believe it, and therefore you can function decently in society if you believe it, then you're not considered schizophrenic. Or even like David Icke. David Icke believes in reptilians. Now, people, who knows, it might not be. I didn't like the idea because I thought I was white supremacist, and I thought I was anti-Jewish and anti-immigration and everything, and I thought David Icke was a white supremacist, but it could be a delusional belief, right? The idea of reptilians. But at the same time, David Icke is a millionaire, and he's doing well. So he's functioning in society. So he will not be diagnosed as schizophrenic because he's functioning, and that's a common denominator. But the way that I looked at it, and this is why I was like, mental illness is a social construction, is I looked at it that if you're not functioning well in society, that's actually a good thing because society is white supremacist. Society is not healthy. To be what they say, like if you're well adjusted in a sick society, then that's not a good thing. So I'm like, yeah, people who are depressed, you have to be not functioning well in society to be diagnosed as depressed. And I'm like, well, we should have more people depressed so that we need to take down this capitalist system, and go back. And they're depressed from the first place because we're not in our more communist systems like Howard Zinn talked about, like which it's kind of mythological, but like the Native Americans, they were just happy and at peace and in their tribal societies, and it was communistic, and the women and men were equal, and everyone was equal, and it was like a paradise land, and everyone was communist, and it's so wonderful. And it was kind of like this. My friend Noah, and it was like, let's go back to the tribal ways. Let's go back to the communist ways, the more black ways, the anti-white ways. That's the white capitalists who they destroy nature. They're not natural like the black man's natural, and we should go back to being tribal like Africans and communists, and the women will be naked, and everyone will be naked. And now, on a side note, my grandpa did say that he didn't think that that showing your breasts is necessarily bad, because he said in African societies it is true that people are not really that attracted to breasts because they see them all the time. But so again, those are types of things that my grandpa would say that would make me think like, are you kind of communist? But my grandpa, but regardless, that was kind of a tangent. But my point is, like, I wanted to be like, yeah, and like schizophrenia, they were actually the priests of the ancient societies. This is what I wrote about in my Psychiatric Slavery book, which is basically a communist book. They're actually the priests. And, to be diagnosed as schizophrenic, you have to be non-functioning in society. But being non-functioning in a sick society is actually good. And we need to destroy the capitalist white supremacist society and go back to the tribal, like in the tribal societies, where we're all communists and we're all equal and la 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 la. Everything is wonderful. And the people who are labeled schizophrenic, which is, that's a social construction because, there's no evidence that there's biological differences, which there actually isn't. There is no evidence that there's biological differences between the schizophrenic and the non-schizophrenic, because I wanted to uproot and destroy everything in society. I wanted to make the normal good, the normal bad, the bad good. I wanted to destroy everything. So I'm like, they're actually the leaders of the ancient societies, of the tribal societies, of schizophrenics, and which is there's debate about that. That could be also a myth. But I wanted to believe that because I had an ego agenda. It was kind of an anti-white because I saw myself as Jewish, and I saw like the Jews as more nomads and more like tribal and more communist, and I thought the white supremacists were the Nazis and the communists were the anti-white supremacists, and I wanted to just destroy the white race. And so I'm like, yeah, and so I started also talking about like the black people, like Soulja Boy. Like Soulja Boy had that song like, throw some D's on that bitch. I just got my report card. Throw some D's on that bitch. And I'm like, yeah, you see, Soulja Boy is making fun of, in black society, in black culture, it's actually cool to be stupid, and it's cool to be anti-school, and it's cool to be bad, And again, it is Shiva worship. It's the worship of being bad, and being bad is being good. But, and my grandpa would say it is true that, being nonconformist can get you in the flow, and being conformist, you might not get in the flow. So I wanted to really latch onto that idea, because, if you're conformist, then my grandpa would say you get social approbation, so you can get stuck in conformity and still believe that you're a separate self, and still be stuck in a separate self and not lose the self. Whereas if you're nonconformity, you could lose the self, and also you could be more likely to get in trouble and then do a U-turn and be enriched by your nonconformity, like the prodigal son. He goes out and he does bad things, and then he maybe expands his awareness and he becomes enriched. So when he comes back and he does a U-turn, he's actually more enriched and he can be more susceptible to the flow. But regardless, I'm like, yeah, Soulja Boy, he's against, the white supremacist education system that, IQ is just it's a social construction. It's I didn't like the idea of IQ because I saw it as white supremacists, like the idea that white people have higher IQs and that's why they do better. And I didn't like that. I'm like, well, there's Poincaré. He had a low IQ and he was a genius, and it's a lot of it's based on environment, and because black people grow up in the ghettos where there's lead in the water, and it doesn't even matter. All that matters is, because my grandpa taught, all that matters is you work hard. So I would always appropriate my grandpa's teachings but misuse it. So it's like, all that matters is how hard you work. And there's some treat people as individuals. There's some black people with high IQs and some white people with low IQs. So, let's treat people as individuals. But really, so I'm acting like I'm so compassionate. They call it toxic compassion. I just heard Jordan Peterson talk about that, but like toxic compassion, like I'm pretending like I'm so compassionate. And and in my mind, I'm thinking I'm doing what my grandpa's teaching. He teaches about the flow and transcend dualistic software. And I'm like, aren't I transcending dualistic software, Grandpa? I see the white people and the black people as the same. I'm transcending dualism. But I didn't even realize that, because my grandpa didn't teach me well. I didn't realize that I didn't transcend dualistic software. I still saw myself as Jewish, and I still wanted race mixing. I hadn't transcended the ego, but I didn't know that. So my grandpa, again, he's the one also who kind of like confused me, and I'm thinking that I'm doing the right thing when I'm doing all this stuff. So I'm like, yeah, Soulja Boy, he has a song, throw some D's on that bitch he's against. But you know what? It's the education system. It educates people to be a part of the capitalist system, or the cogs in the wheel, and it teaches people linear thinking. And, in the tribal days, we didn't have linear thinking like the Aboriginal people, and they believed in dream time, and everything was wonderful because everyone was a communist and everything was great. And so we the education system's actually negative, and we should go back. Soulja Boy, he's seen as bad, but actually, he's trying to break free of the white supremacist education system. And who cares if he's getting D's? Who cares about grades? Everybody, grades is white supremacist, basically. So my whole stuff was like, but I did a good job. Like the way that I wrote it, I'd have to go back and go through it, but I'm very, like, I could be sinister. And I did it in a way that didn't make me look like a retard, but made it look like I'm like really compassionate, and I really want what's best for black people. And I really want to, but really deep down, I just want to destroy the white race, because I saw white people as the biggest threat, and I was just a communist. So, but I'm like, yeah, the capitalist system, and they say that schizophrenia, because I wanted to make the bad good, and mental illness is supposed to be bad, right? It's people who are not functioning in society, but I liked not functioning in society. I wanted the society to crumble. So I wanted to uplift the crazy people, uplift mental illness, and make them the good guys, and the same people are the bad guys. So I'm saying like, in schizophrenia, a lot of people, they have what I think it's called like neologisms, where they make up words and they even rhyme a lot, right? And I was like, and same thing with black people. They do that a lot. Like, the song, like the rapper was like, yada da dee da, la da da dee da, and they like make up words and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it's because, schizophrenia is actually a response to trauma. And same thing with, the black people have been traumatized. And, it's all the, but then, maybe schizophrenics actually are closer to the flow. And they're close because they're not stuck in conformity. But really, my grandpa would say schizophrenia is like a very rigid orientation where you get paranoid because you really want to protect the ego self, and then the self becomes fractured and you can't really manage. But regardless, I wanted to uproot everything and make the good bad and the bad good, and Marxist. So my book was pretty crazy, and but. And because my grandpa would say, he would confuse me. He'd be like, I asked my grandpa, what do you think of witches? And my grandpa would be like, there is no such thing as a witch. There is no man or woman. And it says in the Bible, in Christ, there is no man or woman or Jew or Greek. That means in the flow, you transcend the self. But I'm thinking like, okay, man, yeah, I always liked that idea. Oh, man and woman is a social construction. It's actually a continuum. Yeah, I love that idea because, again, I wanted to be like, and same thing with black people and white people. It's a continuum because I wanted race mixing. So I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Yeah. Oh, witches, there's no such thing as witches. And so I'll get to like 2020 when I was writing my books. Like, one of the things I was also doing like lectures, and I was talking with this guy. We were talking about Foucault, and Foucault's whole thing was like that society needs scapegoats, and one of the scapegoats is mentally ill people, like schizophrenics and stuff, and society needs it, and every society has a certain number of it, and before it was also like lepers, and these are scapegoats that people could say, that these are the sinful people in society that hurt society, and then they can cast them away, or in some case, and nowadays you throw them into psych wards, but back in the day you throw them on leper colonies and stuff, and then you can have a finger to point at to say they're the bad guys, and so you don't have to point the finger at yourself. But I love these ideas because I wanted to make the victim the good guy, and I'm like, yeah, these people they're the voluntary scapegoats, and they adopt schizophrenic orientation because they want to maintain the structure of society. And again, I was like a capitalist thing. So I'm like, society is built around mental illness. A lot of money is made off of the psychiatric industry, and it maintains normalcy, and it maintains the capitalist system. And really, mental illness is just a code word for not functioning well in society, but not functioning well in the capitalist system. And I'm like, and these people voluntarily become mentally ill to maintain to show themselves as what you should not be, to maintain normalcy, the religion of what is normal, to maintain. And I was like, and the same thing happened when the Salem witch trials, where the witches wanted to maintain Christianity. And the way that they do that is they adopt the witch orientation, which is kind of a mental illness where they're witches and they're possessed by demons and stuff. But this maintains the Christian system, because then the Christians could say, see, our religions are true. Our religion's true. There's demons and there's the bad guys. And then they can scapegoat the women and maintain the Christian system, and maintains the structure. So then they can maintain the white people fighting against the Native Americans, who were the devils. And it turns out even the witches got their witchcraft from black women who was with them. So then they can have the outlier. So the people, I would say that the people would voluntarily act crazy. Like when you go to the places where the people are like doing the exorcisms, and there's people there like, I got a demon inside of me. And then I'm like, yeah, that person doesn't really have a demon inside of him, but he's acting like it because it maintains the cohesion of the society, of the Christian society, and it maintains white supremacy, and it maintains Christianity. And same thing with mental illness, where, because I even studied that, like multiple personality disorder, that it's not real, but it's more of a it's based around suggestibility, where the psychiatrist would tell people, are you hearing voices, or like, are there multiple people inside you? And the people want attention, and they're already outliers in society, and they go like, yeah, and they're suggestible, and they go, yeah, I do have multiple people inside of me. But really, I think it's called like iatrogenic or something, where it's actually the doctors, the psychiatrists, are making the people mentally ill, because they want to it maintains the psychiatric profession, and I was like, it's just capitalism, and it maintains the psychiatric profession, and it also gives these people attention, and allows these people to be scapegoated, and it maintains a whole society to have the other. And so it's kind of like very much Foucault and postmodern. And I basically was like, but if we just destroy the capitalist system, then everything will be fine. So like multiple personality disorder didn't exist, but it was made up, and it became real, but it wasn't really real. But it was really just suggestibility by the doctors to maintain the capitalist psychiatric system. But basically my agenda was to destroy capitalism, uproot everything, make the white good bad, the black good, the women good, the men bad, say that there is no man or woman. But I didn't understand my grandpa's teaching. My grandpa's saying transcend the ego, that there is no man or woman. But I'm like, oh, so man and woman's a social construction. Oh, gay and straight's a social construction. I listened to this lecture where back in the day, the gay people, they would just do gay stuff, but they didn't call themselves gays. It's social construction. But that's not what my grandpa was saying, though. But I thought but I'm thinking like, I'm transcending the ego. I'm in the flow. Everybody should mix, but I didn't understand what the flow was. I was still a communist. and I hadn't transcended my ego. I still saw myself as Jewish, and I thought that being a communist is good. So I'll continue.